nothing but faith. This thing's far too great that I want to accomplish. I'm hoping 25 hours a day, but something good works out, and I'm just like, dang. Think everything's gonna be okay. Yeah, I'm like, dang. Think you might just know the way. I'm like, dang.
Well, go ahead. You start.
Well, didn't we meet on a dating app? Isn't that what they said?
Yeah, that wasn't a dating app. Jeez Louise. I don't know how I could met a woman who's in the Latter-day Saints on a dating app.
Well, they have dating apps for people in the church.
Yeah, but I don't think that someone like me would look in that app for somebody.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't have been there.
No.
I did try it. I tried it. It was called like Mutual or something.
Mutual? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
I
let's introduce ourselves. I'm Todd Bridges, and you are?
I'm Bettijo Bridges.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a designer.
And I'm an actor.
Yep.
Also, I work with computers sometimes, and
I'm mainly a mom, though. Really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I pick up dog poop at the house from the dogs. So I'm the dog pooper scooper. That's my name.
And I'm the take care of people person.
Yes, you are. You take care of everyone. Wonderful, honey. You really do.
Thank you, babe. I try.
So let's say how we met. So tell us. You start off.
Okay, so I actually had tried those dating apps and thought they were terrible. I tried a few. I think I did the Facebook. They had just come out with Facebook matching thing. And I actually created a profile on accident because I know everybody's like, how do you make it on accident? But it really was an accident. I went on Facebook to look for something, like a friend, something. And it had this little thing that said, hey, Facebook now does matchups where you can, has a dating thing. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because I'd reached that point. It was probably a year after my divorce. And I'd reached that point where I thought I was thinking about dating. I wasn't really ready to try it, but I was just thinking about it, right? So it appealed to me. This little pop-up was like, hey, we have a dating app. And I was like, oh. And I was curious, but I didn't want to sign up. I was just curious. But you clicked through this little thing. It was like a little, I don't know, you know how they have you, it kind of like one of those wizards that just makes, I didn't know it was a wizard. I just thought it was
stuff for you.
Yeah, I thought it was info, right? That it just telling me about it. But because it was connected to Facebook and Facebook already had all my details, it was like this wizard where answer these 3 questions and suddenly you have a dating profile.
Oh, wow.
So all of a sudden I had a dating profile. And
you're lucky it didn't create an OnlyFans profile for you.
It started, and people started responding. People started
to OnlyFans?
No, to this one I created accidentally.
Okay. Gotcha.
It was the week of Thanksgiving. I remember that because my sister was coming to town for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I remember us laying in bed after we'd put the kids to bed and just laughing as we were looking at profiles. You will not believe the quality. I mean, it's bad. Those dating apps are rough, man.
Yeah, they are.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we were having a blast looking at the things that people actually chose to put as this is the best. I remember there's one guy was showing pictures of the mac and cheese and the wings he was eating.
Maybe he makes good mac and cheese and he makes good wings. You never know.
I don't know. I just remember.
So you can date him and get a meal.
And I was my sister and I were dying. I was sending screenshots to my friends of this is crazy. Who knew? Anyway, so that was kind of how I went into the world of the dating apps. And then it was kind of about 6 months later. I think I might have tried one other dating app. I can't remember, but I had given them up. I had tried it, gave it 6 months. Rough. It was rough. My first date off of one of those was
think about
bad.
Being rough. Think about if you would have dated the guy that created the mac and cheese. It would have been really rough for you.
Well, that first date I went on where I realized afterwards that I almost got locked in a bus.
Oh, yeah. That was a little strange. And you told me about that, and I can't figure out why you even, wanted to go inside of a bus.
Well, I don't know why I did it
strange.
either. That's you have to be careful.
Well, tell us what happened with that
Okay,
bus.
So I had this advice, which I actually think is really sound advice from my sister. I have younger sisters. And she had been divorced and had dated, and her therapist had said, hey, you got to be careful being on those dating apps and meeting people and just doing too much of the connecting over the phone and text before you meet them in person,
Gotcha.
Because there's cues you get energetically from people when you meet them in person. And if you put off meeting them for too long, sometimes your brain or your body, or like you'll override those cues. You won't get them when you meet them in person. So this therapist had recommended to my sister, secondhand therapist recommendations, but it sounded good. She said that you should try to meet them within a couple weeks of actually, meeting somebody online. I thought, hey, you know what? I'm not even so sure about this whole meeting people online thing. So this sounds like a good rule to follow.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was trying to follow that rule. So I'd met this guy. I'd met a whole bunch of guys. This was one from the Facebook accidental profile, right? He looked pretty good. We talked a little bit. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try to follow this rule for myself. I want to meet this guy in person. So I drove up. I was in Phoenix. We live in Phoenix now too. But I drove up to Flagstaff, which is about 2 hours away.
Gotcha.
Which that probably should have been a sign, right? Like I should have to drive 2 hours to go on a date, right?
Wait, you drove 2 hours to go see him?
Yeah, because it was important to me to meet in person. Yeah, right?
But you should have chose a
I should have waited till he was going to come down or something. I don't know.
Didn't know if he was
I don't know what I was
killer
thinking
or something.
Anyway, I just remember the first thing when I showed up. Of course, he looked 10 years older than his pictures, right? Okay, so that's classic. Yeah. Anyway, so
if that happens to everybody else out there, I'm sure you're understanding that what we went through also.
I mean, if you've tried dating apps, you probably have your own horror stories. You should write in and tell us.
Yeah, so go ahead.
We'd love to hear them.
Didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I met him way older, and right off the bat, he's like, "Hey, his house was weird. I remember he had a big backhoe tractory thing, and then he had this bus, like a school bus, and I was like, "Oh, you have a bus? Interesting." And I didn't know what to think. This is my first date in over 20 years. Okay,
you were married for 20 years, right?
I was married for 21 years. And
you have 4 kids.
And then, 4 kids. I've been divorced a couple times, or not a couple times.
Once.
No, just once. I'd been divorced for a couple of years at that point.
Gotcha.
So it had been literally 23, 24 years since I've been on a date.
You had no expectations at all. You didn't know what to expect.
I didn't know how to behave, what to do, what's normal. When I dated last, I was 19.
Yeah,
Actually, I was 18.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a long time ago. Anyway, and so the bus was weird, and he was like, "Yeah, it's so cool. You want to come see it, the inside of it?" So I was like, "Okay." So we walk over, and honestly, I'm not even kidding you, Todd. There was a padlock on the bus. Okay. That should have also been a clue. That should have
been a clue that
right?
I do not want to get on this bus.
I know. You've taught me to be so much more aware and careful.
I would have saw the padlock and
I was just let me see your bus. So I go up on the bus, and I remember it was somehow, I think he said somebody had been using it for rodeo. There was horse, that old horse fabric, kid that's in kids' rooms, from 30 years ago.
Probably made out of people's skin,
No,
you didn't tell that
one. It was making curtains, and then there was a bed. And that was where my brain finally kicked in.
When you saw the bed, you should have been knowing, okay,
so
I'm glad that worked.
Where my brain finally kicked in was he went and sat on the bed, and he was like, "Here, come sit on the bed with me."
Heck no.
And I was like, "No, I think I want to get off the bus."
Yeah.
So I turned right around and got off the bus. And then Kevin's, he probably was going to lock me in the bus. I don't know. It was so weird. It was so weird.
That is very strange.
And the whole thing was weird. And I was ready to go basically from the minute I got there. And when I was trying to leave, figure out how to get, I'm nice. People, I'm a nice person, so I don't want to be rude. Yeah. And so I was trying to figure out basically the whole time how to end it, because it was pretty clear this was not. Yeah. And he was like, "Well, can I give you a hug?" And I was like, "Okay, what could go wrong with a hug, right?" Oh, it can go wrong. I stood, he gives me a hug. He starts out with a normal hug, and then he starts hugging me down my body. It was so weird. I don't know. And then he got on his knees and he hugs me down my legs to my ankles, hugging each leg, then goes back and hugs the other.
You know what he was doing, right? He was measuring you for a dress. No, you know how he was going to measure you, because he wanted to wear you as a dress. Oh, like in the Silence of the Lambs.
My gosh. I don't know what he was doing, but I just remember being like, how do I make this stop?
He didn't have a Hannibal mask on.
No, but it was so. And then when I left, I called Mandy, my friend. She's actually who introduced us.
Yes.
I haven't even gotten there. This story has been such a long tangent, but anyway, I called her and she was like, how'd it go? Because I did at least be smart. She knew where I was going.
Yeah.
So I told a friend.
Yeah.
You know, I was trying to follow the safety rules.
Yes.
Just wasn't prepared for some of these other
prepared to be going onto a bus.
rules. Like, don't go on buses.
Yes.
You don't just say no to the hug. Maybe it's going to be creepy. But anyway, that's how out of it I was. And she was like, how did it go? And I was like, okay, I guess. And she was like,
did you use that voice too?
I don't remember.
Okay,
I think I was just like, I think it was okay. And she was like, well, tell me about it. And so I started telling her what happened, and she stopped me, and she's like, that sounds like it was terrible. And I was like, you know what? I think it was terrible. Anyway, fast forward 6 months from that train wreck, and I was done with online dating. I was like, forget it. I don't need. I'm actually perfectly happy to just be single for the rest of my life, and I really was. I was okay with it. Mandy was not okay with it. She was like, "No, Bettijo, I know there's better. There's a guy out there for you. Like, you just need to get on a better app." And I don't know what better app she had in mind, but she started building me a profile without my knowledge. I didn't know, and she was asking you. Yeah. For some market research, basically.
Yes, to judge how you looked and what needed to be done.
I think you're like the only single guy she knows.
Yeah, I was probably the only single guy at the time that she knew. She was also married, probably.
Yeah. So she was like telling you.
And I was enjoying being single.
Yeah.
I had a great time being single. I was a little bit
You
wild.
were off the dating apps too, right?
Yeah, I was done with the dating apps. I had so much terrible experience off dating apps that I was done. I wasn't going to use another one of those.
Yeah.
I figured if I didn't meet a person, then forget it.
Right. So she sent you, I think, a bunch of pictures of me and was like, which one does her hair look good in?
Yep. She said
like,
all
what
that.
else was she asking you?
Just asking me, to think about, to look at it and see what you could use, what kind of picture you should use for this dating app. And I was looking and I goes, oh, she's kind of cute. I think I want to meet her. And she goes, okay, well, and then it happened so quickly. I didn't understand what was going on, and all of a sudden you were saying, we started talking, we were just talking. I was planning on just being friends, started talking. But God always has something else in store for you, no matter what happens. We started talking, and then you were talking about coming down. I was like, okay, great.
Well, because I was following my rule, right? I was trying to meet you in person.
Yes. You were coming down.
I didn't think I was going to, I thought I was going to come down there and scrub you off the list.
Yeah, you thought I was going to be old probably, or old looking.
Well, you said, you had said something as we were talking. Well, and it's funny that the very first thing I ever said to you was a text that Mandy wrote. Right?
Yeah.
Because she texted me.
It wasn't even your own writing.
No. She texted me and she's like, so I have to confess, I was trying to build you a dating profile, but my friend that I was talking to about you, he actually wants to meet you. So here's his number. And here's what you should text him.
Actually, that means that you hooked me on a lie in the beginning. Aha! Okay.
Well, girls, we all write each other's.
Yeah,
I write texts for Mandy. She writes texts for me. I help my daughters. They help me. Actually, my daughters were really good at this whole dating online thing. They have to learn it. It's something we in our generation.
Oh yeah.
It's not we didn't have to, but they have to know that. That's how it works.
So
right?
So tell us, you came down. What happened?
So. Yeah.
And I'll tell my part.
Well, actually, the week before I came down, I finally Googled your name because she said you were somebody famous, but I didn't know who you were. And I was like, well, if he is as famous as she said he was, probably if I Google his name, I'll find something, right?
Yeah. You find all the stuff.
So I Googled your name the week after I'd already made the arrangements to come, had the plane tickets, everything, made the arrangements. I Googled your name, and that's when I found that there's some crazy stuff out there about you with the crossbow.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the girls that you'd taken to court for that you were threatening. I don't know. What did they even say you were doing?
They just said that I was, basically what happened was, because I didn't want to be with them, they decided, the first woman decided to seek revenge. Then she found help from another girl that I didn't want to be with either, because I felt, I was started dating this one girl first. And this girl would call and text probably over 700 times a day.
Oh my gosh!
And wouldn't
Seriously?
and would not take no for an answer. When I would say, "Hey, I'm here watching a movie with my son," she goes, "Well, I'm more important than your son." I'm like, "No, you're not. It's not going to be that way." And I would just start, stopped answering her calls. Finally, I just, I went and saw my counselor, therapist, and she was like, "You should not be with her. She sounds very obsessive, very compulsive, and very she's,
Which you already knew.
Yeah, which I already knew, but the acts that she was doing. So when I decided not to be with her, then she found somebody else who to ally with, and they made up all these stories about me that just weren't true. And the sad part about it was I was just about to sign the deal for my show, and then my show got stopped because of that. And I was pissed. I waited all this time to get it going, and now someone else makes up some crap that I have to deal with. But I took it into court and I won, you know?
Yeah.
And but the sad part about it, by then, it had broke my spirit a little bit, and that's when I kind of decided to retire, basically. And then when Mandy called me about you, I was just expecting to meet you, you know, and, you know, maybe have some fun, and then, you know, you go home and never see you again.
Yeah, so the week leading up to it, I Google you, I find all that crazy stuff that still lives out there about you. All I remember was crossbow, and I was like, called Mandy, like, what have you gotten me into? Like this guy.
There's a guy with a bus. Now there's a guy with a crossbow.
I know. I'm like, what? He sounds really scary. Like there was some scary pictures that they somehow have taken out of context. Anyway, so this is Mandy. She's smart. She's like, okay, here's the deal. That is not how I remember him from what I know, because she knew you in real life.
Yeah.
Okay. So she was setting me up with one of her old friends. Yeah. And she's like, that's not how I remember him. But she's like, but hey, here's what you do is when you're with him, find a way to bring it up. And if he gets real mad about it and like angry, then you need to get an Uber and like find somewhere safe, get out of there. But she's like, but she's like, if I know him, if I know Todd, what he's going to do is he's going to laugh about it and he will tell you what the real story is. Yeah. And that's what happened. Yeah. Like I brought it up to you and yeah, anyway, so I almost canceled my trip because I was freaked out.
I have to say when you say you're flying in, I was like, okay, she's flying in. I thought, you know, everything's going to be, you know, just have some fun, like I said, and you'd be gone. So when you got off the plane and I saw you on the curb, God said to me in a very loud voice, that's your wife. And I went, what? He went, that's your wife. I went, I'm not getting married again. He goes, that's your wife. I said, oh, well, let me get to know her at least and see what's going on. And the minute I met you and started talking to you, I was like, oh my God, I love this woman. I go, she's amazing. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's intelligent. And then, you know, you called my furniture my new furniture that I was getting. You said that it was for old people. I took her to the furniture store where I was buying some furniture.
Yeah, our first date was the furniture store.
And I showed her the furniture that I was getting for my house. And you were like,
texted me. You had texted me before my trip a picture of this like furniture dining room set you were getting. And I remember laughing and being like, and I think I texted you and said, I think I could smell the cigarette smoke coming off of that furniture. Like, it's like an old lady. Yes. It was terrible. It was so terrible.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that terrible. I'm a guy, I thought it was great. But you being a designer, you realized it was quite bad.
So you took me and you picked me up and you're like, let's go change out my table. Yeah.
And I went.
Well, I did not feel the same thing when you picked me up. God was not communicating to me like that. I was more like oblivious. I think it's because my life with the kids, it's just so crazy and so hectic that for me, what I thought was going to happen is I was going to fly out to California and have a quiet weekend to myself.
Yeah, and you also had another date planned too. Well, don't forget that one.
I hadn't lined it up.
But you were planning on it.
I was going to go out with you, and I was pretty sure you were going to be too old for me because I had gone. I was like coming to know myself. I was like, I think I like older guys. Like, I think I can handle like being with an older guy. And I'd gone on a date with a 62-year-old, and that was too old. Like at the time, I was like 41. I think 41 or 42. I don't know. Somewhere around there. It's hard. The years are blurring. But I'd gone on a date with the 62-year-old, and it was too old. It felt like going out with my dad. And I was like, this is not the right energy. Like, not okay. At the end, he was like, do you want to go on? I'd like to take you out again. I was like, you know, it's really nice of you, but I just don't think it's going to work. And you had said something to me in our talking about like, I got to go do some work on the computer. And the way you'd said it made me feel like maybe you were like an old man.
No, it was just what you say when you're doing something.
Like, I don't say I gotta go work on my computer. I don't know.
No, because
I don't know.
That's not how you talk. That's how I talk.
Anyway, it sounded kind of like an old person way of
cold.
talking, and so
get this, you guys, young people out there, when you're talking to a woman, don't sound like an old person.
No, it's not. It's not even that. It's
Make sure you have your dictionary in front of you. You can bring up the new words.
You are a lot older than me.
I'm only 15 years old. That's not that much older.
It's a lot.
No.
I mean, when you were 15, I was a baby.
Yes, and I'd be in prison for that, but you are not 15.
That's true. So, yeah, I kind of was, I didn't have high hopes. Like, I thought I'd go out there, I'd meet you in person, give you a shot. I've known on all the dates I'd gone on, I knew within like 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, what were you saying within 5 or 10 minutes with me then?
So I just thought, oh, he doesn't seem old. Like when I got in the car with you, I was like, he doesn't seem that old. So that was a good sign, right?
Yeah.
And I think I was just decompressing too from being with the kids. It's like a different mindset.
Oh yeah,
you know?
I know now. Trust me, I can see it now.
And so you took me to breakfast, and then we went furniture shopping.
Yeah. Yes.
And I picked out a better table for you.
Yes, and then I did something that I've never done.
What?
I introduced you to my mom and my brother and sister and my children, I think. I believe.
Yeah, and see, I didn't think that was that unusual because they all were living there on that compound where you guys so I thought that was normal, but Mandy thought that was pretty crazy. She's like,
I never done
wait, you met his family already? She thought that was
I would never do
kind
that.
of
I always kept those girls on the side, not ever introducing them, because I knew that I was supposed to be married to you. I just didn't know, what you thought about it.
Yeah, we had such a fun weekend too, and then I didn't end up doing any of the other things I had planned to do while I was in LA. I just hung out with you the whole time, and it wasn't, I think, until when I was at the airport to fly home that I was like, I think I'm gonna miss Todd. Like I had a good weekend, I'm gonna miss him. And so it was a little bit slower. God was a little slower with me, probably because I would have run.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that God worked everything out. It's been very I've never been a stepfather before, so to be a stepfather, it's very different for me.
That's been the biggest challenge, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, being a stepfather is completely the
because
biggest challenge
us
for
it
me.
works, it's good.
Yeah.
But it's like you throw into that equation. I mean, when we got married, I had 4 kids at home with me.
Yep.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It was a
So,
lot.
and they're
then
older,
your
like teenager.
And then our friend had to move in with us for like a month, and that was
gosh.
So I got
We
thrown
didn't see
from
that coming.
no kids. Well, my kids are like 27. The older kids are our oldest are 27 and 26.
Yeah.
And to be thrown into
Yeah, so
a
you
bunch
had
of kids running around and
like a
screaming, I was
month
like,
of my 4 kids,
Yeah.
and then we inadvertently had to have 3 additional. So there was 7 kids.
Oh yeah.
It was crazy.
And screaming and hollering and and I'm like, I'm going to show
I mean,
shock.
just because we try to be real here, like that happened because we needed an order of protection. I went and helped her to get one.
Oh, yeah.
And the judge did not award her sole use of her house. So we essentially made her homeless. We didn't realize that was how it could go. It was really rough. And we were just blindsided by this. I thought I was going to help her. And then, I don't know, I think we thought that he would have to leave and she would have the safety to protect her.
Yeah.
But that's not how it went. And it was crazy because she had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So
That was crazy.
I know. So you're having to adjust to all of that. So step parenting has been, I know, I think that first Christmas too was like the first time I ever thought about how Joseph was a stepdad.
Yeah, that's exactly
Like with
right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And that it is really something that is just, I mean, a dad is such an important role, but it's really special when a man has to step in and be like a stepdad. That's like an extra, like above me. It's harder.
Much
Don't you
harder.
think it's much harder?
Yeah, because he doesn't have any real power with the kids.
Yeah.
His power flows through you.
Yeah.
So what he has to do is earn their admiration and respect, and they have to know that they are not on the same level, but they can communicate with him. You know, like I had to learn what I have learned with them in the last 2 years. I have learned to have more patience. I've learned to forgive easier. That was the hardest thing for me to do, forgive. When somebody did something to me, I could hold that forever. And I think God wanted me to be in this relationship with you to learn a lot more stuff that I need to learn to push forward before I get what I want to get again.
Yeah, because I think that in the beginning it was like easier too because you could kind of tease and it was kind of fun. But like after a while, that teasing, there has to be kind of this like quiet,
well,
calm.
It has to be where the kids understand that you are an adult.
Right.
That's
like
what they have
that
to
was the
understand.
harder
That was the
dynamic
hardest thing.
to kind of figure out was how to no, he's not your dad. He's not trying to replace that role, but he is an adult that deserves respect in this house. Like that was the tricky. Yeah. And I think we've overcome it almost completely at this point, but there's still some.
I think we've overcome it. And I think because now when I talk to them, they respect me a lot more. They know who I am. They know what I'm willing to do for them.
Yeah.
The fact that I interact with them every day, and I do things with them. So I don't have to really, I say things more like, okay, do not make me have to tell your mother. Yeah. And that makes me do it, And I...
So you're not the sheriff, but you're the deputy.
Yeah, I'm the deputy with the keys to the vault. You know, and
or the keys to the passcode on the computer is just as just as valuable.
Oh yeah, and, you know, well, and also I remember when I first came there, I was so saddened by the computer you had for the kids. I was like, oh my God, these poor kids. Gotta improve it because, you know, I'm in the computers.
Well, you know technology.
I'm in the computers
I'm
and
not
gaming and all that stuff. So when I saw that computer, I was like, that's gotta go. Gotta get them something they can actually use.
Yeah, and you've built computers.
I built computers and all that stuff. Yeah, the one I have now I built. And mine was expensive, you know, but I love it and it's a lot of fun. I'm also a streamer. I stream on Twitch under Todd Bridges. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you guys should go watch it, especially if you like Fortnite.
Yeah, but no kids, only adults. Trust me, we're 18 and over stream.
That's his outlet. So we have to shut the office door. There can be some swear words wafting out of there.
Sometimes, yeah. My friends are way dirtier than I am. My friends say the craziest things ever. So
yeah. No, I don't think people realize how techie you are.
Yeah,
maybe
I'm big time techie.
You kind of grew up right alongside technology.
I grew up right when technology was emerging, and I'm happy to be still, you know, inside the field, and it got larger.
Because as a kid, you were like going down to the corner store to play video games, right?
Yeah, you would take your quarters and you go down, you know, to stores and you play games against your friends and all that. And then we also had gigantic arcades. You go in there, you know, I swear you spend like $20, you spend a lot, but you know, I save a lot of money because I play people for games. Like you beat them and then they have to put in. You beat them, the next person comes in and puts in, so you just keep, you know, like that. So, but I also built a computer from office parts from my studio. Built my first computer.
From the Universal Studio,
Studios,
right?
Yeah,
they were cast-off parts.
Yep, and I built my second computer. I went and bought the parts and built my second computer in 98 or something like that. No, 95. It was
95 is like before the internet.
Yeah,
like just
it was,
for people that are
so slow.
Following the time.
Yeah.
I mean, the internet existed, but you didn't like use it as a layperson.
Well, you used it AOL. That's what you used, and all the games. I think that was 99, wasn't it?
Not 95 though. 95 was like
95 was different.
I can track it pretty good because it was like high school. So 95, I was a freshman of high school.
You were 15,
and
right?
I remember by my senior year, which I graduated in 98, that we had a class that was being taught where it was about the internet. And it wasn't like a whole class. It was like part of some other thing. They did a special training and we all went to like a computer lab and they were showing us. And I remember that it was like the IP addresses with numbers. So it was before you could type in like www.toddbridges, realtoddbridges.com, right? Yeah. Or before you could type in like the
message. No,
go get your shirts.
Yeah, message.
Anyway, so before you had a name, it was like just the numbered IP addresses. Yeah. And I remember sitting in that class as a senior in high school and typing the numbers, and everything that you would pull up was all text, and I'd be like, this is just never going to catch on. I feel like I'm at the library.
But wait,
the internet is so stupid.
Yeah, but we have to go back and tell me when you realized that you were supposed to be married to me. What made you figure that out? So you came back and you missed me.
Oh, yes, I missed you. And honestly, I think it was on the flight home that I was thinking about, how much I'm going to miss him. And then it was at the same time, then we landed in Phoenix. You know how when you land and it's that like whoosh and you get slammed back in your chair? Yeah. So I'd been thinking about it the whole flight home. And then as I landed and with that whoosh of energy, I got like this like whirlwind of like images in my mind, like of like wedding dress and my kids in fancy clothes and like, and I was just like, whoa. And I started crying and cause I was frightened. Like that scared me. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know about that. And Mandy picked me up at the airport and I think I told her a little bit about it and she was like, oh, it went so good and stuff. And I was just like, let's just put on the brakes a little bit here. Like, I think I was not quite ready. Like, I think it was like, it was scary. It was scary.
So when did you come around? Because I was already.
No, I liked you.
God already had me in full. You know, I was already in this passenger seat waiting.
Well, remember I was planning the wedding in Hawaii for my friend's daughter?
Yep.
For the little girl I've known like since before she was born.
Oh, yeah.
So I was planning her wedding. in Hawaii. And I think it was the idea that this just like wedding on the brain, I don't know, somehow brought it up easily.
Was it the fact that I stayed up with you all night on the phone?
Right, on the way home, because we couldn't get on the flight.
And it was hard for me to stay up all night. Trust me,
it was so sweet. So we were flying standby home from Hawaii, and my kids all got on the flight. And so my older daughter, she was with them, but it was still just, I had to stay back in the airport. There wasn't a seat for me. So I had to stay in the airport all night, and you did stay up all night talking to me on the phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. He's such a sweet guy. Yeah. So somewhere in there, I started to like warm up to like, okay, I think this is coming, and I just had to get used to the idea.
Yeah, I told
it was scary.
I told my brother that I was going to marry you, and I remember I went ring shopping, went out, and I found you a ring. And I think you came back and I invited you to Zuma Beach. Again, the beach we went to, and we're on the beach, and then I proposed to you. And you said no. No, you didn't. You didn't say no. You said yes, and then that's when I got getting really nervous again. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? God, help me here. God,
there
save me.
was a wedding happening on the beach that day. Do you remember?
Yes, there was a wedding happening on the beach too. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are all the signs pointing in the direction.
Yeah.
God told me what it was going to be, and this is how it was supposed to be.
I'm kind of glad that wedding was happening too, because remember how it was like windy and crazy, and everybody looked super uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Because I think we would have been tempted to try to have a wedding on the beach.
Yeah, you're right, but that was enough to not do
We
it.
saw that and we're like, that does not look fun. Yeah.
And then we had a beautiful wedding. You designed all the wedding, and it was beautiful and wonderful.
It was.
And then I remember we went to Hawaii, and I got sick. I got sick in Hawaii, and it was terrible. I could barely walk like 5 steps before I needed to rest. And she's thinking, "Oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?" I'm sure she was thinking that. And so we tried to have the best time we could there. I lost my taste. I couldn't taste anything.
So we had to get you COVID tested, and it wasn't COVID.
But whatever it was bad. So then I couldn't taste.
You couldn't eat any of the good food we were eating. And we ate good.
Yes,
man.
we had really good food, and I couldn't taste it. That was the worst. And the worst thing that happens is you got food in your mouth, and you're eating it, and it tastes like nothing. That's the worst. But you know how it tastes because you remember in your head, but you're just not tasting it.
It's so sad.
So we came back. And I started getting sicker and sicker, and then
you ended up in the hospital.
Yep. Well, because I thought that you were taking my temperature and it read 105, right?
Yeah.
Read 105, and
I've never seen that. I thought there was something wrong with the thermometer. I got another thermometer and checked, and it was still that high.
And that's the thing, when your brain gets that hot,
you were crazy.
You fry your brain.
You were saying weird things.
Yeah, I definitely did. What was I saying?
Well, I remember Adelie was saying something about like when we were trying to use the thermometer, it was one of those temporal scanners that has like a circular disc. And you were like, why are you putting Fruit Loops on my head? And you didn't want to go to the hospital. I had to like force you to go. Yeah. You didn't want to go.
And then I get in the hospital, but I do remember the nurse being really afraid of me.
Yeah.
She thought I brought back some crazy disease from some foreign country.
Yeah, well, we had no idea why your fever was so high. Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was very crazy. And then I was in the hospital for a couple of days, they thought it was my appendix. They wanted to take my appendix out. I'm like, no. I'm pressing on my body. I'm like, there is not my appendix. And they got the fever down, but I'm like, it is not. It is not. I'm chesting everywhere. I'm like, my appendix is fine. You're not taking those out. And then I was like, I'm leaving. You're trying to cut me up. Because, I was thinking about this you wouldn't know this movie. It's an old Richard Pryor movie where they said a guy came in for a simple little hernia fix. And he came out of there and they cut his testicles off.
What?
Yeah, it was a Richard Pryor movie. It was a comedy movie. So I was like, no, it ain't happening to me.
Well, yeah, it's been a whirlwind, man.
Yeah. And then I remember, coming back to the house, and that's, getting adjusted to everything. And, I think we had the first year, I think was kind of rough because we had to get to know each other.
Even better, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that now I know you and you know me, and we're learning how to, not to take things too personal, and when one of us hurts each other's feelings, what I've learned to do is just say, hey, that hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
I didn't like to tell people when they hurt my feelings. I would keep it and say, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. And knowing I wasn't fine,
but it does no good to lie, right? Or cover.
No one cover it up. That's
we'll
the
have
thing
to
about
talk about that next time.
Yeah, but the thing about relationship is you have to learn to be honest with each other and tell them how you really feel.
Yeah.
So that they can hear it, and then from whether you're wrong or not, the other side should always say, hey, I'm sorry if I made you feel that way. It wasn't my intentions.
Yeah. It takes a lot of humility to make a relationship work.
It does. Well, it takes a lot of humility in life itself.
Yeah.
But for a relationship, I think you need double humility to make it work.
Yep. Well, they're giving us the hand signals.
Okay.
We could probably keep going,
Yeah,
but
so I'm Todd Bridges. This is Bettijo Bridges. We thank you so much for being on our first ever podcast, first time on our podcast. And
Dang.
Well, dang, I didn't do nothing. Dang not. No.
Dang.
We'll be here next week again with Dang 2. No,
Yes.
Dang the next coming.
Yes.
We thank you so much, honey. I love you, and thank you so much for having us today, for coming in with me today. And I know you'll be my co-host, and I'll be your co-host. We'll be each other's co-hosts and lovers. So I'm going to be sleeping with my co-host. That is cool. This podcast is produced by my wife, Bettijo Bridges, in collaboration with Pop Populi, and edited by our daughter, Adelie Ann.
she is also the musician responsible for our theme music. So go check out Adelie Ann wherever you stream your music. Have a question or topic you want us to cover? Send us your suggestions at dangpodcast.com.
If you would do me a quick favor, please subscribe or rate our podcast to make it easier for others to find. Have a great week.
I'm running on nothing but faith. There's things far too great that I want to accomplish. I'm hoping